Hello, Internet. So nice to see you today. Welcome again today for another Theory Talk Live. And today we're going to talk about the beginner blind spot. Now, before everything else, let me say one thing. I call this the beginner blind spot, but in reality, the blind spots we're going to talk about persist. Okay, just because you become better at playing guitar doesn't mean that you resolve all the problems that are at the beginning. So we're gonna see today all the situations, all the things that happens that prevent you from playing guitar, all the assumption that people have before they start playing guitar that simply ain't so. Okay, but I'm gonna go in depth and see how this stuff stops you and how this stuff hinders you and how to go beyond that. Now, I see already lots of people out there. If you guys are listening to this, if you guys are here watching us, say hi in the chat and also say, or in the comments, and say where you come from. I'm always curious to see where you guys are coming from and where you're watching us from. So just say, hey, I'm name, from, country, okay, in the chat, because I'm curious. Very good. So let's introduce our guest for today. Okay, so since that's a topic that it's really important, and to talk about this requires to have taught a lot of students. Okay, it's not something that a guitar teacher can talk competently about when they taught only a few people. So I invited the person I know that taught the largest amount of students. Okay, at this point is safely in the 4-figure number of students, maybe 5. Okay, so please, everybody, welcome guitar breakthrough specialist, Thomas.
Hello, Dr. Zelio. Thanks for having me.
Hello,
everybody.
Okay, so Thomas, let's start from the basics. So when a beginner starts, they don't know everything. Otherwise, they would not be a beginner. That's why we are here for, to take people who don't know everything yet and to help them know more and get better at this instrument and have them doing this faster. Not just learning, which is great, but learning at a good pace. Otherwise, it's gonna take forever. Okay, and you know that when people come to you, often they have some misconceptions, some ideas, some things, that prevents them to improve as fast as they can. Like a wise person once says, it's not what you don't know that it's an obstacle to you. The real obstacle is the stuff that you think it's true, but it ain't so.
Yes.
Yeah. So without having a comprehensive list immediately, because I know the list is long, but would you mention a few things that most beginners think it's true about guitar, about how to learn guitar, but absolutely, definitely isn't so?
Sure. And what I'm going to say here, and as you've prefaced earlier, goes way beyond the beginner level. So these sorts of things that, we'll talk about, you see definitely among beginners, but you see them with intermediate level players and even some advanced players too. It's a very, very common problem. So before I sort of go down, sort of a list of things that I think are really hurting people, let me just make an overall comment that I think the primary problem, and you alluded to it already, Dr. Zelio, was people make assumptions, and those assumptions are often based upon other assumptions, and those other assumptions are based on yet other assumptions. And if any one of those assumptions are wrong, and very often they're wrong on multiple layers and in multiple ways, the whole thing falls apart. And it doesn't mean that one can't learn to play guitar. It just means it's going to take unnecessarily much longer. It's going to be much harder, and probably is going to become more expensive for them financially if they have to go to a teacher later on to kind of untangle the mess that was created through sort of assumptions and so on. So I think the first thing we want to do as a student of the guitars, we want to stop guessing. We want to stop guessing and assuming things if we don't have to. If the information is out there where you don't have to guess and you don't have to assume, let's shave years, maybe decades off of the learning process by not assuming things or getting wrong information or getting correct information, but in the wrong order. All of those sorts of things leads to someone wasting a lot of time, a lot of frustration, and frankly, just not getting the enjoyment out of playing guitar that they could be having and be having sooner or faster without those things. So that's my overall thing is, we want to avoid the assumptions based on assumptions based on assumptions, which are, that's always going to be problematic. Okay. So the first thing is that very often students or beginning players, they'll try to self-diagnose. So if they're struggling with something or they think that maybe they're doing something wrong or something isn't working, they, instead of looking for an answer, a lot of times people just make them up or they'll look at a symptom of a problem and say, this is my problem over here, but they're not pointing to the root cause of anything. They're just observing something and then thinking that this is my problem over here, and it's not. And then they go search for an answer, or maybe they'll go try and find a guitar teacher to give them that answer. But even if that person gives you the right answer, it's not to the right question. See? So don't self-diagnose. And one of sort of the criticisms I have of some guitar teachers is that when they take on new students, they're so paranoid about losing the student that they'll do whatever the student wants, whatever the student asks for, and let the student drive the whole process in the direction the student wants to go. And I'm not talking about helping the student reach his or her goals or play in his or her style, or I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about driving the direction of the lesson or of the class on these rabbit holes and wild goose chases to solve a problem that's not really the root of a problem. It's just a symptom. So it's a problem on both sides. So I think the first thing is don't self-diagnose. Find someone who knows, just like medically, right? If your stomach aches, don't assume you've got stomach cancer, or you've got food poisoning. Go to a doctor and find out. Let's know for sure what the right thing is, the correct thing is, and then let's go find the right treatment, remedy, cure, therapy, whatever it is for that thing. I think that's something that comes up a lot, and it's one of the starting points of wrong assumptions.
Yep. I'm gonna say something controversial now, because occasionally there are people coming and studying with me and or taking one of my courses, and they're asking me, but once I am in the course, can you give me a list of everything that is in the course, and then I can pick what I want to learn? And I'm like, no. I know everybody else out there answer yes. I know, because they tell me, but if a teacher answers yes to this question, this kind of defeats the whole purpose. Okay, I want the student to tell me their goals, and I will direct them the right way depending on their goals. It will be this course or this other course, or don't talk with me, talk with this other person that is more expert than me at that. Great, no problem. But once we decide the goal, I am the teacher. It is my job to find the best path for the student, and the student doesn't know what they don't know. Okay, it doesn't mean that the student is stupid. The student is not stupid. The student could be the most intelligent person on the planet. Like, we have an IQ of 190. Okay, but they just don't know the map yet, and they can't because they've never been there. They have to have a guide to bring them there. So once we decide the goal, I'm giving you the fastest path there. But if you start choosing things and locations on your own, this is going to be incredibly frustrating, because you're going to always pick something that sounds very interesting, but that you're not ready for. And it doesn't mean it takes years to be ready for that. Maybe it just takes, we need to study this and this first, and we're done in a couple of weeks. And then you can go and get it, okay? But that's the thing, okay? It was an old Japanese text that was saying that the teacher is like the needle, and the student is like the string behind the needle. My job is to pierce the thing and guide you, and your job is to follow. Of course, you tell me what you want to do, but that's how it works. Out there, on the other hand, it doesn't work this way. You go to those, I mean, not for everybody, but you have all this big buffet, okay, of choices, like, and then you go and pick and choose, and then after a while you realize, hey, I'm reading all those things, but I'm not learning anything. It doesn't stick. Maybe I don't have the natural talent to understand all these, but in reality, it's just the order of things and being guided or not.
Yeah. And the order is really important. If you get that order wrong, even if the pieces that you're pursuing or what you're learning is good information taught by a good teacher, maybe you're even practicing it well, getting that order wrong can really slow down the process. Now, with that being said, let's hold that thought in your mind, because there's another thought that students often have, and this is not just beginner level, but even people much further beyond that, is this idea of I've got to learn and master one thing at a time. They have this linear thought process in their mind that first you learn A and you learn it and you practice it, you memorize it, you master it. And then once that's done, then you learn B. And that's just not how it works in music. We're not learning mathematics. We're not programming a computer or something like that. So, but people often think they have to fully learn and master step one before they can move on to step two. And if you do that, you're going to spend a lot of time not getting very far and not having a lot of fun. If we were computers and we had no limitations in practice time, no limitations in how long we're going to live, we had no limitations like that, maybe doing things in the linear order might be fine. But since we are human beings and we have limited time, limited energy, limited frustration, and this is an art form. So every time when you learn something here, and you have to learn some other things so that when you come back to this thing you started on, you have more context, you have more skills attached. There are more ways to apply and integrate whatever this piece of information was, or the skill, or whatever it is. You need that stuff to fully use and get to the next level. So even if we were programming a computer, we still wouldn't go in a straight line when we're trying to learn an art form. So I think getting out of people's minds this idea that they have to learn and master everything step by step, and those steps are linear. I mean, that's in their mind, they're linear, and they're not, or they ought not be linear. There are steps involved. They're just not in a straight line. They look more like this. Okay. So if you follow those steps, you're going to do much better than if you are looking for a straight line. Now, with all that said, I know that I'm at the risk of having someone understand or misunderstand me and think that what I just said was there is no order. You don't have to go through any steps. In fact, there are no steps. You can just do whatever. You can do anything you want in any order you want. It doesn't matter. We can just be like a pinball in a pinball machine, just bouncing all over the place. And eventually we kind of cover all the territory. And I guess that's the right way too, right? No, that is chaos is not the answer. Chaos is not the answer.
And you see that those two things mentioned go hand to hand. Like, people expect that, one, they can choose the topic at any given moment, and two, that they have to study and memorize everything perfectly. So when you tell them, no, you cannot choose the topic because it's going to take longer, they think, oh my, so this teacher is going to have me work about something super boring forever and never move forward. When in reality, we give them something and then we give them something immediately after. And most people are like, no, way too much. And no, it's not too much if you just do what we tell you, okay? You don't have to memorize all these things. You don't have to memorize all these things. Okay, I'm probably going a bit further ahead here because this requires a little bit, but see, that's the thing. It's, you don't have to stay on one topic as much as a beginner think they have to stay and learn it perfectly. I don't know if people teach this way, but it shouldn't be done this way. It should be like, okay, let's have an idea of that. Let's move. Let's have an idea of that. Let's come back to the previous one, maybe. And it's so, like you say, it's a lot of bouncing back and forth, but in a very reasoned way. And you can do that only if you know the territory already. But the order is not random. And if you try to go random, or if you don't realize that there is an order, you're going to get lost very fast. Now, you mentioned that this is not mathematics. You know, I have a degree in physics.
Yes.
But
I'm way out of my depth even mentioning math in front of you.
No. It's okay. It's okay. Because you see, that's one of my problems with how they teach mathematics. Okay, and not only me. There was a mathematician. I can't remember his name. He wrote an article called "The Mathematician Lament," which I find incredibly hilarious. If you search it on Google, and this says like, suppose for a moment that we teach music like we teach mathematics, and he starts describing that. And it ends with, well, nobody will be able to play an instrument ever anymore, but everybody will be super expert on some strange kind of music theory, but that makes no sense. And I'm like, what do you mean, suppose? That's exactly what is happening. We should have done exactly the opposite. We should teach mathematics the way the right people teach music. Instead, most people are teaching music as if they're in the wrong way we teach mathematics. But that's because when people learn, most people have this thing that mathematics is just what they learn in high school, which is the worst thing ever. Okay, it's like when they teach you how to read the notes on the score. That's the worst. I mean, I get it could be useful, but it's the worst thing ever.
Well, just for the audience to understand, I agree completely. High school math was the worst thing ever, but for very different reasons than the doctor disagrees. Yeah, it was definitely the worst thing ever. So, but my reasons were quite different than yours.
Probably.
You were probably bored, and I'm just waiting to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like many things. You like it or you don't. A lot of people don't like music. We don't force them to sit down and read music. It would be torture. Okay. So,
yeah,
pretty much.
My love for math ends after counting money. I'm cool with that, but after that, I'm done. So,
well, it's a start.
So, getting back to some of these other things, one thing that's common, and I know that you can comment on this a lot, is, when people are starting out, or maybe even not starting out, they just kind of wander around the internet, trying to read everything, watch every video on YouTube. And it's kind of like the pinball in the pinball machine. They're kind of just bouncing around. They click on that link, and then now they're watching this, and now they read this, and they're not sure, is what I'm reading or watching or hearing, is this correct? Is it useful? Is it relevant? Is it appropriate for me right now? Does it fit the style that I want to go into? Is it what I should be doing now? Those are the questions maybe they should be asking, but instead they're more asking, is it interesting for me? Is it fun for me? Can I do this right now? But wandering around the internet on any website that's not the way. It's not the way for so many reasons. And even if the information is good, and I will tell you now, not all of it is. There's a lot of, let's just say, not so great information out there. There's some good stuff for sure, but there's a lot of stuff that's, in my opinion, not that great. Okay, can send people off wasting a lot of time doing things in a very inefficient way. But the point is, let's assume for the moment that everything is awesome. You just happen to stumble upon all the right authors, all the right teachers, all the right videos, all the right free stuff out there. How are you going to make sense of the order, even within one person? So if you went to Dr. Zelio's YouTube channel or his website, even then, a lot of great stuff. I mean, by world-class expert, right? But what's the order that you're going to absorb and try and learn and apply that stuff? There has to be a plan. There has to be a path. Without it, yes, you can still make improvements and still progress and still learn to play. I'm not saying you can't. You can. People do all the time. But the amount of unnecessary time, effort, energy, wasted practice hours, because things are done in such an inefficient way, there's a better use of your time. And what is time really? Time is life, right? Time, literally time is life. So if you waste an hour doing something inefficient that wasn't really fruitful for you, you literally wasted an hour of your life. It's like just taking an hour of your life and throwing it out the window like it never existed. It was just wasted. So that's something I think about a lot, in anything that I learn. How can I learn this the right way? But how can I learn it in an efficient way? I don't have extra. I don't know about you guys. I don't have that kind of time to waste. I don't have a minute to waste. So I want to find what is going to be the efficient way, the best way I can find, and then follow it. Actually, finding it is one thing. Following it is the rest.
Yeah, we don't have time for trial and error. People are like, I'm gonna figure it out. You don't have time. It's always something that gets underestimated a lot. Okay, and then they think, how could some players be so good when they were younger? Must be natural talent. No, it was just simply efficiency. Okay, because either by chance, because hey, it can happen, or because they had some very good guide, those people stumble on the correct order of doing things, and so they were moving faster than anybody else. That's the thing. So, yep. But you see, I'm noticing from the comments how what we are saying gets reinterpreted again using specific assumptions right now. So I wanted to comment on a few of them. For instance, take this one. Start with the type of music that inspires you to play. That's perfectly correct. So when we say that the teacher decide the order, we don't mean the teacher decide what style you play. It's a completely different thing, okay? But out there have been, such bad teachers, okay, that this needs to be said. I had a student once that really loved metal, and he came to me to learn metal, and I'm perfectly fine in teaching him metal. And he told me that his previous teacher was teaching him jazz, specifically Frank Sinatra song, with the excuse that once you can play jazz, you can play everything. That is not true. Okay,
That's clearly not true.
Yeah. Clearly not true. Do you really think all those metal players can play jazz? Because in the next breath, the jazz player will tell you, no, of course not. So I don't want to. But it's abuse of power, honestly, or malpractice, whatever you want to call it. Because, come on, okay? If you like to teach jazz, but don't get the metal people and teach them jazz.
Yeah, to send them somewhere else and just go attract jazz students.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So definitely you should start with the kind of music that inspires you to play, and definitely you want to have the shortest possible path to what inspires you. That doesn't mean, though, that the very first day you're going to be able to play Eruption, okay? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, okay? So that's one assumption. Let me take the next assumption here. Stick to a concept until you understand and perform with confidence before moving on. No, don't do that.
Okay. Yeah. We just talked about that, actually.
Exactly. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because, like I say to my student, every concept in music, it's a bottomless pit. You could take one concept and spend a whole life thinking about that, and you will keep finding new things and new music out of that. That is possible. It's just not recommended, okay? Because it's a long process, a frustrating process, and you never learn any other things. Instead, you should start thinking with this kind of mindset. You go in, you get what you can from this concept, and you get out of this concept and do something else in the right order again. But you don't stay attached to a concept forever. One thing I teach to my students, and you find this on YouTube, it's one of my most viewed video, and I have a free book on that. It's learning the notes on the fretboard. Okay, it's important. Yes, it's the only thing you need to do. Very emphatically, no. And I recommend no more than 5 minutes a day on that. People, of course, keep writing, no, I did 2 hours on this. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. Well, no, after 2 hours, what are you going to learn? 5 minutes, then out, then play something else. So no, don't stick to a concept until you understand and perform with confidence before moving on. Quite the opposite. Go in, steal what you can, okay? Whatever you can grab, and get out, but move fast. You can come back to the concept later, and it's going to be better. Because when you come back, you learn other things, and you can implement this concept better.
Yeah, it's just to clarify, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I want to make sure that people don't misunderstand. I think what you said, You're saying go into the concept, learn what you can, and then get out and move on. But you're not saying never come back to it, right? So yeah, you're gonna loop back with additional knowledge, additional skills in other areas, and now those things are going to become in, or you want to integrate them and then apply them. So it's not like don't ever come back. I know you didn't mean it that way, but someone could maybe misinterpret or assume that's what you were saying.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I meant. But yeah, it's always a problem because you say something to counteract a problem, and and people fall in the opposite assumption. So you have to like putting two guardrails on both sides, okay, to make sure people don't misunderstand the other way. And again, that's not because people are not intelligent. Those are natural assumptions to make. Very natural. Indeed, I made the same assumption when I started, because you taught me. I made the same assumption when I started. They're very natural. They're just wrong because things don't work this way. Because learning those things don't work in the intuitive way everybody thinks they do. Okay. So again, I'm mentioning those comments. I have no problem with the commenter. Actually, keep commenting. It's interesting. Okay. Makes sense. I have no beef with anybody. It's just showing that yes, it looks reasonable. A priori, one would even agree with that. But once you have enough experience teaching, you realize that that's not true at all. And any students will be better served to not think this way and think actually kind of the opposite way. Indeed, what I would recommend to most students is this. It's a two-step process. Find a great teacher and then trust him or her. Stop worrying about when we are doing this, is he ever going to teach me that? Are we ever going to get there? Stop worrying about all that. I mean, I know it's natural. I know I did the same, okay? But
I did too as a student, did this exact same.
Exactly, because you're thinking, but he's keeping me working on this stupid little thing forever. Will we ever get to the real stuff? Guys, that's the real stuff. Trust me, okay? It doesn't look like anything at the beginning, but it takes you there. So find a good teacher, possibly a great teacher. Trust him, okay? It takes some time, but worrying about that doesn't make it any faster, okay? So that's the thing. Okay.
Two other little things I wanted to add to what you mentioned when going just real quick. You mentioned about the guitar teacher who told the jazz teacher who told the metal kid that he should learn jazz first. And when you started telling the story before you mentioned jazz, I thought you were going to say blues or acoustic guitar, because those are also common assumptions that that people make. Well, I should start learning blues because whatever reason. Blues is simpler, the less notes involved. Control bar blues pattern is predictable. Pentatonic scales are common. Bending strings, some phrasing techniques are common in the style. Well, yeah, like other styles too. So that's also a common myth that one should start with blues. You shouldn't start with any particular style over others just because that style has some elements to it that might be unique to that style. I mean, that would be completely ridiculous. You wouldn't start the blues kid off with metal. You wouldn't start the jazz guy off with blues, or it doesn't make any sense. Same thing with acoustic guitar. Very often, well, my Uncle Bob told me I should start on acoustic guitar, or you walk into a music store. This is the worst ever. Walk into a music store. I know, because I used to work in a music store, and the owner would tell people this when they walked in. A family comes in and wants to buy a guitar for their kid. Well, you should really start off on an acoustic guitar and then work your way up. And I'm sitting there, I'm 19 years old, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? The guy wants to play electric guitar. Why would you recommend anything other than the thing that's going to motivate him to want to play? So, but he did it all the time. And his thought was, well, if I sell him the acoustic guitar today, in 6 months, he'll be back for the electric. No, you sell him the acoustic guitar today. He takes a month worth of lessons because you included it in the package, and then he's gone. He's never coming back here or anywhere else. And I saw that happen over and over and over again. So again, assumptions that people make hurts them.
Indeed. And you know the story of the man who loses his key. It's night. The man loses his key, and then at a certain point, there's a policeman passing by and sees the man doing something strange under a lamplight. Again, it's night. So the policeman goes there and like, what happens? Hey, I lost my keys. And okay, let me help you. And they start searching the keys around the lamplight. At a certain point, the policeman asks, but did you lose them here? You should lose them here. Oh no, I lost them in the other block. Why we are searching them here? Because the other block doesn't have a lamplight, but here we have one. We're never gonna find them there. And when you say about starting by learning the blues, I'm thinking exactly the same. Just because there is a lamplight here doesn't mean that's the place you want to search. Now, I'm not saying that you should not learn blues. If you like blues, learn it. And yeah, there are some things you can be learned from some blues element. If you play rock and metal, some of this stuff gonna help you anyway. But maybe you don't have to start there or become a blues expert before you can solo over a metal track or a blues track or anything. Yeah. And so yeah, that's one thing. I see that you wrote me a note. Sorry if do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. It's a little risky, but I will.
Guys, we are going for the risky stuff. So what we're gonna say right now, it's gonna be very unpopular, but it's gonna be true. So
yeah,
do you guys want us to go
there?
Be
unpopular, that's for sure.
Let's go there.
All right.
So
the number one job of a teacher is to inspire you. No, wrong. That's your job. Your job as a student is to inspire yourself, to come in with the beginner's mind, to come in with motivation, to be intrinsically, internally, organically motivated and inspired yourself. It is not a teacher's job to inspire you. It doesn't mean that a good teacher won't inspire you. It doesn't mean it's wrong or bad if you feel inspired from a teacher. It also doesn't mean it's wrong for a teacher to try to inspire you. I'm not saying that. But teacher's job is to lay out the path of how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to go, take you by the hand and walk you through it. That's the teacher's job. If you are inspired through that process, that's the cherry on the top. That's the bonus. But if you come into that process and you're not inspired, you got no chance. No chance. Because when things get challenging, when they get frustrating, and you have hurdles and you reach a plateau, if you are seeking inspiration or motivation externally, not from within, you're going to run out of gas. You get burned out. And I'm not talking specifically to our friend Elias here. This is not aimed towards him. He just happened to be the one who posted the comment. So Elias, I'm not speaking directly to you or at you. I don't know you, but I'm just making a general statement. Okay. So please don't take anything I'm saying as a personal criticism towards you. It's not meant that way at all. But I'm saying that the reason why I'm pointing it out is when a student feels like I'm going to go to a teacher in order to be inspired, that is not the good recipe. That's like saying, I'm going to go find a woman to date so I can feel better about myself. You might feel good dating a nice lady, but if you don't feel good about yourself, that's just putting a Band-Aid on whatever is causing you not to feel good. We got some internal work to do. I'm not a therapist or anything, but this is a little bit like that in the sense of you have to find your reasons for wanting to play, wanting to have fun, wanting to improve, wanting to become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more creative, more artistic, more expressive, etc. I think if you're looking for that elsewhere, it's going to be tough. Even if you have a teacher that does inspire you, they don't live with you. They're not going to be there 24 hours a day when you're, there by yourself and, find it internally, generate it. If you're not naturally inspired, and again, this is not meant towards the poster here, just anyone. If you're not naturally motivated, inspired, you can create it within yourself. This can be created. You can create it. You don't have to go find it. You don't have to wish, well, I'm just not very inspired, or that's just how I am. No, you create it in the same way that Tommaso has created all with internally his motivations to pursue things in his life and his career and his business and his teaching and music and everything else, and same way that I have in mine. So, yeah.
We can tell that the number one job of a teacher is not to inspire you by a very simple thought experiment. Let's say I'm asking this to everybody in the chat, and you guys can give me an answer, okay? Because I mean, I may be wrong. I could be that I'm thinking completely different than everybody else. So I'm asking you guys. You have two teachers in front of you. You're a beginner. You have the two teachers in front of you. One, suppose one will inspire you. You're going to be super on fire and inspired all the time. You're going to feel great. But after 3 years of lesson with him, because you can see the future, you're not going to be better at playing guitar. You're not going to be better. You're just going to be on fire. You're just going to be super inspired, but not better. The other teacher will not inspire you, will never give any kind of word of encouragement. We'll just present the stuff. And you know that if you study with him, in 3 years, you're going to be great. But you're not going to be, he's not going to help you being inspired. If you want it, you want it. If you don't want it, you don't want it. So do you choose the inspiration but no improvement teacher, or you choose the improvement but no inspiration teacher? For me, the answer is obvious. I go with the improvement but no inspiration teacher. In the chat, write me which one you choose. Okay. And again, I just want to see what you guys answer. For me, it's obvious which one I want to be in. I want to get better. I already have the motivation. If I didn't have the motivation, I wouldn't even start.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, give me it. Now, that said, a good teacher will do a little bit of both. Okay. It's not that a good teacher will never, ever, ever inspire you, or will never, ever, ever encourage you. That's just being a normal human being at the end of the day. But that's not the number one job of the teacher. Otherwise, any kind of motivational speaker could be a guitar teacher. If the inspiration is the number one job, any motivational teacher could be your guitar teacher.
Yeah, Tony Robbins would put me out of a job.
I was just thinking about Tony Robbins. I mean, we should actually call him. Hey, why don't you start Tony Robbins teach guitar? Okay, so up to you guys. But if you can choose only one, which one do you choose, improvement or inspiration? So then, of course, if you find somebody that gives you improvement and inspiration, why not? Okay. So, Thomas,
Yeah.
how about that misconception that you have to learn how to read music as soon as possible? Because lately I've seen this resurfacing. It was a couple of years that nobody was talking about.
Yeah, I thought this was dead, actually. This
Yeah.
idea. It did seem to go away for a while. I've noticed the same pattern. Yeah, I mean, where does someone get this idea from? Maybe it's an assumption. Maybe someone else who doesn't know a whole lot about how this works told them that. But again, this comes from linear thinking that, well, once you know how to read, then you'll be able to start doing these other things. Here's another assumption. People think that you must know how to read music in order to learn or understand music theory. Also not true. It certainly is useful and helpful if you know how to read music. It'll help you in absorbing music theory a bit faster, but you can learn it without knowing how to read. Now, if you purchased a typical music theory textbook where all the examples are written in notation, yeah, it's going to be hard to learn that way without knowing how to read. But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you don't have to learn that way. You can still learn these things and many other skills, rhythm, timing, everything else, where the notes are on the fretboard. I mean, I have many students that, know where all the notes are on the fretboard, but don't read very well. They're not sight readers, for example. So, yeah, I don't think learning to read music is bad in any way. I mean, if you can read, great. If you want to learn how to read, that's also great. But I would never tell anybody, yeah, the first step for you, go learn how to read music, or I'm going to teach you how to read music. That is not the first step in my view, for so many reasons.
Indeed, I would agree. It's always surprising when people come to me and like, yeah, I'm going to start and take lessons with you, but first I want to learn how to read music. Don't. You don't have to take lessons with me, but don't start from learning music. It's, again, nice skill to have, useful in many situations, but also useless in many other situations. That's the thing. It's not that once you learn to read music, somehow you are an expert on everything and you can hold your own on everything. You hold your own on a specific situation, they give you a score. How many times they don't give you a score, though? Okay, so
Yeah.
and I mean, people have this idea that once you learn how to read music, you get a special insight into music. I found this to not be true for the guitar. I found this to be true if you want to write for orchestra, because seeing the whole orchestra laid down in the score, with every score in the specific range, helps a lot understanding this kind of complex situation where you have a lot of instruments going on. I don't play piano, but they tell me that for piano it's pretty much fundamental. But then again, it's like I say, in standard notation is piano tablature, because it's like right hand, left hand, put it on the score, put it on the piano. So
Yeah.
but for the guitar, it doesn't really offer any kind of extra enlightening, okay, or enlightenment, any kind of extra insight on the instrument. So we can safely do this later, guys. Okay.
So as
So
long as we're on the topic of reading notes, maybe we should talk about another assumption that people make, is that learning music theory is something that's going to restrict them, or as you've said in the past, imprison them, etc. You want to maybe talk about that? So, when I see this more with intermediate level players than with beginners. Sometimes beginners are okay; they're happy to learn music theory, or they assume that it's required before they can start learning to play guitar. Of course, that's not true. It's that you must learn it before you can start playing. But with intermediate level players, oftentimes there's an assumption that um, if you learn music theory, it will just restrict you. That music theory is a bunch of rules, and these are the lines that you can color in, and you're not allowed to color outside of the lines. And if you color outside the music theory lines, you're a bad boy. Not good. These are some silly assumptions. And when people think that way, they really don't know what music theory is or why it was invented in the first place, nor in how one can use it. So music theory was invented to try to understand why the music that already existed at the time, why it makes us feel the way that it does. So when you hear something and you like it, and in a particular section of music makes you feel a certain way, what's going on there? How can we describe not the emotion of what we perceive, the feeling of what we perceive, but why does it work this way? They're going after the why. Why does it work this way? How is it that when you take this and you put them together, it reliably and predictably creates this outcome that we as listeners experience? Then later, composers would begin to learn and study this new concept called music theory. I should really let Tommaso tell you the history of it. He knows it better than I do. And they said, we can use this. Thank you very much, theorists. Thank you very much. You realize how much trial and error you just eliminated for me. Now, they weren't using it as a template where they would only create music within that music theory, but it helped them to understand what it was that they were already doing and why it was working the way that it does. And when students start learning music theory, oftentimes theory is presented as this is a set of rules. It's not really a set of rules. Okay, it's a set of, you can think about it as a set of guidelines. Now, some things in music theory are what is the word I'm looking for here, Doctor? They're just describing something that is the identity.
yeah,
So
well, the descriptive, yes.
descriptive. So a major scale, right? This the name C major, the music theory concept for C major, is these set of notes. That's not a rule. You're just describing it just like this is the microphone. No one would say, oh, you used a word. You just restricted yourself. No, we're just identifying what it is. You could use the microphone anyway. You can talk into it. You can hit yourself over the head with it. You can do anything you want with it, but it's a microphone. That's a C major scale.
I like to think of theory as a book of recipes. Okay, you can decide what. Nobody's telling you what you have to eat. You can like it, some stuff. You cannot like other stuff. Nobody's telling you you have to do this recipe. It's good to know many, so you can choose. It's good to have a book that contains them. You don't have to learn all of them by heart. You're not going to use all of them. Even a book of recipes, you're going to use probably 3, okay, the one you like best. And you can even change them because nobody is there telling you that you have to use the exact ingredients. You can substitute the ingredients. You can do whatever you want, and you can discover how you like it. Just because Beethoven was doing something doesn't mean that you like this exact same thing, no? But having the book of recipes at least a start. Okay, so I like to see theory this way because people tend to be all caught up in the prescriptive versus descriptive thing. Now, prescriptive is like that's how you should compose music. Descriptive is it's just a description. It's a description, but it's more than that because you can replicate that. Okay, so I like to think of them in a third way, the constructive way, okay, or the recipe way, okay, which is not. It doesn't tell you what to do. But it goes beyond just a simple description. Like, hey, Mozart was doing that. Yeah, so what? Okay, so if you like that sound, you know how to make it. And if you don't like the sound, you know what not to do. And you can take some ideas and bring them somewhere else and cross-contaminate with other musicians and other ideas until you find your thing. So you have to comment on this one.
I knew it. I know exactly what you're about to comment on.
Right.
I know exactly. I saw it pop up, and I know exactly what it is. There it is. I knew you were going to comment on that.
Okay, guys. I have a PhD in physics. I think I have a vague idea on what science is, and it's not what you think it. Now, the problem is not the art. The problem is science. You guys do realize that we are all making it up as we go, and then we are just trying and see what works. No, seriously. Okay. Guys, there is no music theory. You know why? Because theory is music. Okay. Today we think no, there is practical music where you put your fingers down on the fretboard and play something. And there is music theory where you don't touch the fretboard or you don't make sound, you're just thinking about that. That's not the way it should be. What we call theory, which I mean, I don't like the name, but that's the name you're stuck with. It's music. It's music, okay? It just tells you where to put the damn fingers on the fretboard, okay? To make some sounds and then see if you like it and not put the fingers in another place. But it gives you a structure rather than just having this immense amount of possibilities that you are never gonna make sense of, okay? And the distinction between science and art is very, very, very subtle if you ever manage to find it. I mean, once you go and see it in practice, if you look at how they teach it in high school, it's a completely different thing. But that's because it's high school, not because the things are really this way. If you knew any real scientist, they're more artists than anything else. Okay, it's a creative thing, exactly like music. So everybody. Okay, so that's not the argument. The point is there is no theory because theory is music. And that's the thing. A few centuries ago, when we were teaching music, there was no music theory. What today we call music theory was taught as music. Yeah, we have this and that. Let's play them. Okay, we have these chords. They were not called chords, but those patterns we have. Just play them and learn them. And then we have other patterns. Play them and learn them. Listen to what they do. Change them the way you want. And there were specific exercises to change them and create new things. Okay, so science, art, not much of a distinction, but there is no theory because theory is music. Plain, simple as that. Okay, so yeah, but yeah, sorry, I had to comment on that. It's like, it's now. Okay. No, I don't know him. I mean, okay, give me credit. if this guy is a plant, we fed him well. Okay, we gave him the exact right thing to say. But no, the guy is not a plant. Okay, and by the way, now here is his answer. But of course, that's exactly what a plant will say. No, so I mean, you cannot just trust that. But no, it's not. We just disagree. And again, that's okay to disagree. Okay, that's the other thing. It became common on the internet that when you disagree, it's because we are enemies and we need to kill each other. This kind of thing. No, we just have different ideas, and we're just explaining why we have different ideas, and everybody's free to have all the ideas you want and to have the consequences of these ideas. So everybody relax, okay? It's not there's no problem. It's anyway. One thing I found later to myself, I wanted to comment on that. I mean, 3-4 years ago, everybody on YouTube was like, "You don't need to learn theory. Let me show you how you play without theory," and then they proceed to giving a lesson where they teach you theory. It's like pretty hilarious. That went on for a couple of years. Now things are shifting, and we have the new catchphrase, which is, "I'm going to teach you how to play without scales."
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I've been talking about it, but I want to have your opinion. What do you think about this without scale thing that is coming up?
Well, this is all just pretend. This is about business. It's not about, I think in most cases, it's about business or attention. It's either someone's trying to make money by being contrarian. Everyone else is teaching this and they're all wrong, or it's no good, or at least you don't like it. So let me be the one guy who shows you something else different over here. Let me be different. Now, there's nothing wrong with being different, and I certainly have taken contrarian positions on various things in music and guitar, but not for the sake of being contrarian. And I think that's what you're seeing in some of that stuff. It's like everyone's teaching this, so I'm going to do the opposite just because it's different, because maybe I want attention, or maybe because I think I'm going to make money doing it this way. But it's pretend. And you know it's pretend because as soon as you just described, as soon as you see them start to talk about it, it's still, in this case, it's still theory, just using different words. They're just not using the traditional labels to describe what it is they're trying to describe. But how do you talk about it without? You could say, well, you put your finger here, and then you put your finger here, and then you do this. Yeah, it's pretend.
Yeah, and which is pretty funny because I mean, many of those people, they teach you, I'm not teaching you the scale, and then during the lesson they're like, use those 4 notes. Those are 4 notes in the scale. You're just not using the word scale. That's exactly what you said. Exactly. Now, just to make sure people are following us, if these, like, what's our blind spot again? I just want to. The blind spot is that there are a number of assumptions that beginners make that makes them less effective at learning. Okay, so for instance, like we were saying before, some people think that they have to learn how to read music. Some people think that the best way to go is go around and learn on the internet. Some people think that they have to stay on a specific topic until it's perfect before you move on the next one, and all this kind of thing. That's a blind spot, because a beginner left to him or herself will not notice that. You will notice it. Where later, once you start to learn more, you will start noticing that there are some things that you're not be able to do. You notice that the negative shape of what you're learning. Okay, you learned here, 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 and here, but there's a big giant hole in the center, and you don't know why. And so you start thinking, maybe I have a blind spot. If you go to a competent teacher, they will tell you, hey, you're missing this. Some people were mentioning timing before. That's a giant blind spot. It's correct. Most people learn only harmony and learn only technique or other things, etc. And they forget that music is played in time. So you need to have good timing. Timing takes time to exercise, and it takes effort. And you have to work with a metronome every now and then. Not only with a metronome, but you have to work with a metronome. And to tell you how much important it is, I have a metronome literally at arm's length, and tell you how much is important relative to other things. So that's my work desk. And to reach a pen, I have to move But to reach my metronome, I don't have to move. This tells you with how much frequency I use one or the other. Okay, I have a metronome with me more often than a pen. So, okay, but that's a blind spot. How many times you see beginners actually practicing with a metronome or thinking about timing? Okay, so that's one thing. You know what I'm about to click on, right?
I haven't been watching the comments the last couple of minutes.
Wow,
But,
you're gonna
so
see
go
it right
ahead.
now. Yes, yes, there is a painting theory. The theory of color. When you mix colors, and you create other colors. A theory of shapes, negative shape composition, etc. There's plenty of it. I mean, just go and study. I mean, does it have premises and hypotheses? Oh yes, oh yeah, and there have been competing theories in painting and in music. Because people think that, for instance, in music we have one music theory. Once you study it, you discover that no, we have several kinds of music theory, and they're not compatible with each other. And what they're teaching you today is one of those things, and not everything. We have the neo-Riemannians, and we have the Schenkerians, and we have other people, the set theory people. We have different. There's lots of people teaching you slightly different things. So yeah, sorry, it's theory. Period. Anyway, that would be another topic, a very interesting topic, but maybe for another time. Yeah, because we're talking about beginning stuff, not advanced stuff. So
yeah, we're not going to get into Schenker here.
I'd like to,
I mean,
but not on a beginner
topic, right?
It's a different thing. Okay. Anything? Yes. And what do you do? I have this chord progression. I want a chord progression that is 4 chord long. I have 3 of those chords. What chords would sound good in this position? And it gives you several different options. And if you know your theory, you already know how they're going to sound. We can go on and on and on. I can do this all day. Okay.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I I can.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Push it to the limit, and it wouldn't be enough.
Exactly. Okay, Thomas. But I think we explored a number of blind spots on what people do and don't, etc., etc. So, it would be interesting at this point to also tell people how we can help them coming at that. Okay, so I know you have something in mind right now, so I'm gonna put it in overlay, and you can connect these to the blind spots you were talking about before.
Yeah, sure. So this is a free downloadable e-guide that you can download it right now at that link that you see on the screen. And this is going to help you to learn the fretboard, but not just simply where notes are, where is the B flat note on the 3rd string. It's going to really help you to visualize the guitar neck with all kinds of different things, not just notes, but where things are, how to find them. There's a lot of shortcuts here and help you to minimize the brain numbing memorization and stuff like that. So you can condense down the amount of time it takes to really learn. And one of the things that slows people down from learning anything or improvising or creating is having to stop and think, even if it's only for a split, 2-3 seconds, about where things are in the guitar. Anytime that you've got to stop and think, you're putting a wall between yourself and whatever creative thing you're trying to do. If you're trying to transcribe something, if you're trying to improvise something, if you're trying to write something, if you're trying to just practice something, if you have to stop and insert this unnecessary step about where things are, where they are on the guitar, how they lay out, how could they be, you're making it unnecessarily harder for yourself. So when I created this, it wasn't because I thought, oh, it would be cool to show people how to figure out where stuff is on the guitar just because, or because some people want it. It's to help you eliminate that barrier between what it is you want to do and being able to actually do it without having this barrier in the middle. That's what this is about. So check it out, the link. You can download it for free. There's no strings attached or anything like that.
Always fun to say no string attached for a guitar ebook.
Yeah, I think about
As
that
I
every time.
yes, and I have something similar too. So that's an ebook. That's something similar but complementary to what Thomas just showed you. Because this ebook here, what it is here, it shows you how to learn the notes on the fretboard. This is something that people think it's impossible. It takes too much time. It's a lot of memorization. It's unpleasant. It's hell. It's not. If you do it the right way, and the right way is to not think about memorization. Eventually, you memorize them. But if you think about memorization and trying to retain all this stuff into your mind, it gets very overwhelming. In reality, in this ebook, I have a series of few exercises, and you practice them for 5 minutes a day. And I recommend to not go beyond the 5 minutes a day. It's just something you add to your practice. It should not be the only thing you practice. It should not be that you wait to become good at that before you learn something else. That's something you do in parallel with other things. That's the best way to make it work. 5 minutes a day for a couple of months, maybe 2-3 months, depending on a few factors. You go through the exercises, and then you know the notes on your fretboard as if somebody wrote them on the fretboard. Solves one problem. While the Thomas book is a bit more of a wide thing that gives you the 10,000 feet view of the fretboard, this solves one problem, but it solves permanently. So you should get both ebooks because they're both free. And like we were saying, no string attached to either one. Okay, so that would be what you should do right now. Get those 2 ebooks, read them, start practicing them before we go. Let me see if I can find that. It's something I wanted to click before, but it works best at the end. La 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 la. That's we are.
I saw that earlier. What's wrong? What do we need a razor for?
Well, if it's for us, then they're gonna go out of business.
Yeah.
Definitely, they don't get any business from us. So
yeah, well, I do have to shave the head, so
yeah, I resorted to the hat to avoid.
I think I would need an axe to get this thing off.
Yeah, it's especially in your case, yes. So, and with a beard comment, I think. Thank you, Thomas, for coming today. That was for me an interesting conversation. I hope that was the same for the people listening. I hope you guys learned something new. If we were going, I hope we were going against something you were thinking before, because that means we give you some new ideas. So if there's something that we said that you're thinking, and that doesn't sit well with me, that's great. That's great. Just give it some thought. You don't have to agree with us at all cost, but that's good. Maybe we are giving you the key to go beyond the block you are in right now, the rut you're stuck in, and then you can move forward, maybe. Okay. And then again, you know where to find us. I mean, you have my website, you have Thomas' website. You guys know where to find us if you need us. And you can always ask our help. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
And guys, until next time, enjoy.